Welcome to the Elliott Confidential podcast. I'm Christopher Elliott here with Aren Elliott. Hey, Aren.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
We are in Zürich, Switzerland. I can't say Zurich because I grew up speaking German. I have to say Zürich. And we've been here for the last almost 3 weeks now. It's been that long since our last podcast. What do you think?
Oh, it's been a really interesting visit here. So much to talk about.
I know. I don't even know where to start. Maybe with our question of the week, since we are in Switzerland, which has a reputation for being a rather expensive destination. I thought that we would do a question of the week about cost. What is the most expensive place that you've ever visited, and was it worth it? Aren, do you know what the most expensive place we visited is?
Well,
Besides Zurich.
there's been a lot of very expensive destinations. I think that we had this conversation when we were in Buenos Aires. Not Buenos Aires, it was in Uruguay.
Yeah.
When we were in Montevideo. And that is a very expensive city, just because of grocery prices. But it might be different considering everything, rent, transportation. I think being in Switzerland, some of the costs are definitely shifted around.
Yeah, I mean, we've been to places that are considered very expensive. I mean, we were in, I think, Qatar and UAE. They regularly rank as expensive destinations, and we've been around Europe too. Because it's called Elliott Confidential podcast, we like giving people kind of secrets about what they can do to save money. Mm-hmm. So what do we do to save money when we're in an expensive place?
Well, really the biggest one is going to be finding corporate rentals, because that's your biggest cost right
is
there.
Accommodation. So we're in a Blue Ground rental right now, which is one of our favorite places when we're in Europe to go to, because it's a fully furnished place, and it costs far less than getting a hotel. Mm-hmm. The other thing that we don't do is we don't go to restaurants. Like we haven't gone to a restaurant here in the Swiss financial capital yet. And we just go to the grocery stores.
It's pretty easy here, I gotta be honest.
They have a lot of grocery stores here, but getting good bread is hard though.
Well, yeah, that's in most places here in Switzerland, unfortunately. They don't have the gift of good bread.
It's not Germany.
No.
Yeah. Let's do a quick rewind, because we've been to so many places since our last podcast. In our last podcast, we were in Anguilla, and we were about to come back to the United States. What happened after that?
Well, we went to the United States, and then we flew here to Zurich.
Oh yeah, that's the Reader's Digest version. It was a little bit more interesting. So we got uninvited from an island whose name we promised that we would not mention, but it was a very unfortunate thing. But fortunately for us, though, we were able to go to the United States, and we hadn't been back in a long time. So we were in Tampa for 2 weeks, and we had a chance to see your brother and sister while we were there. So that was really fun.
Yeah, so definitely very interesting to see how life is in Tampa.
Yes.
The whole lifestyle is very different from Anguilla, at least, and definitely from Zurich.
Tampa is one of the most expensive cities in the United States. I never realized that, but it ranks right up there with the best of them. But it's nowhere near Zurich. Nowhere near. Anyway, so we were there. We did some tourist things while we were in Tampa. We did the aquarium, and we saw some of the museums. Tampa is a lovely city, but while we were there, it was under a heat dome, so that made it difficult to actually be outside. But one of the really neat things that we did was we were near the airport, is we could walk down by the bay and watch the planes take off. That was so cool.
Yeah, being right next to an airport has its perks.
Yeah, for sure. And also you don't miss your flight because you're 5 minutes away from the airport.
Absolutely.
So from there, we flew to Switzerland. Mm-hmm. And we got ourselves all situated here in this place, and then we started exploring, and we took off. So where did we go first?
The first place that we decided to go here while we were in Switzerland was actually another country.
I know.
It was let's get out of here.
Liechtenstein, right.
Yeah.
We went to Vaduz, and we saw the castle, and we saw it's a very small microstate. And I think one of the reasons that we wanted to do Liechtenstein was because it's another country, so we're kind of keeping tabs on the number of countries you've been to, and it was one more that we could add to it. But also, really beautiful place. At this time of year, everything is very green, and you can still see snow in the mountains. Real nice.
Liechtenstein is a beautiful country, and with the Swiss Travel Pass, we could get there from Zurich. It's about 2.5 hours or 2 hours, and you have to take a bus. But the buses are nothing like what you're going to find in the States.
No, not at all. The train is fast, efficient. The buses are like a luxury motor coach. We were really impressed by that. Mm-hmm. So we came back to Zurich, and then from there, we actually spent a week exploring the city, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we learned while we were here. But then our next big trip was to Bern, which is in the other direction. And what was that like?
Well, it's only about an hour away by train, but it's a world of difference. Hey, I know it's a bit of a cliche thing to say, but seriously, it's definitely noisier, a little bit messier than Zurich. It's not the pretty city.
No, it's not the pretty city. It has a little bit of a dual identity because it's close to the French-speaking part of Switzerland, and so some of the signs are in French, and some people speak French, but then it's also German. So you get just a lot of different languages being spoken. But it's more the administrative capital of Switzerland, and it's known for its university. So we hung out on the university campus a lot. Found a couple of good places there that, do bread, and, we're just always looking for good bread.
Yeah.
And then got on the train and came back.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a very interesting visit. Not something that I'd like to repeat, not because it was bad, just not very interesting. Yeah. It really was nothing compared to our visit to Constance.
That was our next destination. Now, we wanted to go to that part of Switzerland, and we did, but really the big city in the northern part of Switzerland there is Constance, which technically is in Germany.
It is in Germany. It's there's a little tiny Swiss village nearby, but other than that, it is in Germany.
And we went there on a Sunday. And the interesting thing is that on Sunday, everything is very quiet and all the stores close down in Switzerland. But in Germany, not so much.
It's a great place to go on a Sunday, by the way, because
the lake
of the
is
fact
beautiful.
that everything is dead on Sunday. But in Constance, everyone knows, it's time to go walk by the lake, and the lake is very nice. And if you get there on a sunny day, it's just perfect.
This is what we in Austria call the Bodensee. The sea literally means the sea on the floor, or the lake on the floor. It's at the very bottom of, you have Austria on one side, you can look straight across and you see Bregenz, and then on the left, or the north, it's Germany, and then on the south, it's Switzerland. And wow, just stunningly beautiful. I mean, I grew up in this area and I had forgotten how beautiful it was. But mostly though, there is this contrast between the Swiss and the Germans. I love them both, but the Swiss are much more reserved. The Germans are more outgoing and boisterous, and so you walk across the border and everyone is talking to everyone else, and it's a little bit louder. And of course, the stores are all open.
Absolutely. And I think that part of Germany and seeing the differences, we, I think, talked about this when we were living in Basel, is once you cross the border, everything is different. Here they're speaking Swiss-German dialects, and then over there they're speaking more or less Hochdeutsch.
Yes.
But then also the whole way that things are done is very different. I guess the example I would give is it's kind of like the difference between Australia and the United States. Switzerland's more like Australia, and Germany is more like the United States. I have no other corollary that kind of fits.
Yeah, I think that there are definite differences, and you notice it the moment you cross the border. Let's get back to Zurich, though, because we've been here for almost 3 weeks. What are your overall impressions of this city?
Well, when I first came here, I had this impression that Zurich was essentially a giant luxury outdoor shopping mall. And,
Yes.
being outside of that part of town has been a breath of fresh air. Being able to see the daily life of this city in Switzerland, I've come to realize there's a lot more to being in Zurich. There are, for example, a lot of urban gardens next to the cemeteries on the outskirts of town. And this is something that's very cool because you get to see everyone growing flowers and fresh fruits and vegetables, not so far from the city center. Even a 30-minute walk will take you there. And I think that Zurich has a lot of life in it. However, when you go into the main city, it kind of still is just a luxury outdoor shopping mall. You have lots of high-end things, and the amount of things there for casual tourists. I think casual is the operative term here because Zurich and Switzerland in general tends to be very formal and purposeful, but the amount of things that you can have casually are really limited. So if you're looking for the lifestyle that you would get in the United States, maybe you go to a restaurant in the afternoon and then you wake up and do fun things and see attractions. I don't think that Switzerland is the place for that. It's just it is too purposeful, too formal, and if you were to do that, I think you would not enjoy yourself here.
My impressions of Zurich are a little bit different now than they were in the past. I came here when I was a young boy, and I remember my parents saying, we can only stop for a short amount of time here because everything is too expensive. So in my mind, I was thinking, well, we really can't do anything here. It really doesn't deserve that reputation. I think that there are things that are very expensive. If you go to that downtown area, for example, you're going to find all of the, Gucci stores and all the high-end shops. But the moment you get out of that main area there, you find these little shops, you find people who are going to the grocery stores and buying food, and it's just like any other place. And you can also, the interesting thing is one of the grocery stores that we go to has like a cheap brand, but the food is actually really good.
Yes, they have a budget brand.
It's called Budget, right?
Yes, yes.
So, don't be afraid of, if you are in a place where you think that it might be too much, that don't be afraid to try the budget brand because the budget brand might actually be really good. I tried the coffee and it was really excellent. Absolutely. So I got like a half kilo of coffee, ground coffee, for about the same price as you would pay for an espresso at the store, which is a really good deal, It's
actually a really good deal, absolutely.
Yeah.
There are ways of course, saving your money, keeping your powder dry, as we like to say here in the Elliott family.
That's right.
But the one thing that I would say is, even though there's a lot of things that are very purposeful, it doesn't mean that it can't be fun, even for a casual onlooker. I think that if you're willing to do some hard things, like, for example, hiking, is very casual. You can hike anytime you want here, and the hiking is beautiful. If you're willing to do that, then you're going to have a very fun time. If you want to do something on Sunday, have a quick bite with friends, I'm afraid that that's something that really just doesn't happen here.
Everything's closed. And they're very strict about that.
Yeah. But if you're here on a weekday and during prime hours, there's a lot to see. One example I think that I really found very impressive was this one espresso machine brand that was in the industrial district, and we went and saw some of the espresso machines, and they were really beautiful. Very interesting look. It's kind of like going into an Apple store, except it was for espresso machines.
They're very into their coffees here, and apparently it's a fairly recent thing that they've gotten into the coffee. And they take their espresso machines, it's next level serious here.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to learn to look in new places in order to scratch that casual itch.
Right. The hiking here is great. You can literally walk in any direction and you will find a park or a museum, and mass transit here is phenomenal. It's difficult to walk even 2 or 3 blocks without running into a bus line or a tram line or a train, and they all go right back to the main train station, Zürich Hauptbahnhof. I really love the mass transit part of this experience. It's pretty incredible. Aren, who should come to this part of Europe during June, like this time of year? Who do you think it would be the perfect tourist?
You see, I think that Zurich has a special combination of really good access to the mountains, to hiking, has really good development, and it has nearly perfect weather. And then also, if you're not looking for a full vacation experience, you can keep your costs down pretty easily. So the type of person that I would recommend come to Zurich is the type of person that, for example, likes going to the national parks, likes going to Sedona, that sort of traveler that maybe likes, hiking up in the mountains, taking lots of photos, having picnics, and maybe doesn't want to deal with the scorching weather back home, the scorching hot weather.
Yeah, right.
I think that sort of traveler is going to really be very well served in a place like Switzerland.
Now, our weather, I'm glad that you mentioned the Swiss weather. It has been really interesting. And I guess this is a blocked memory from when I grew up here, but June can be cold and rainy, and then you can have 1 or 2 warmer days. But when I say warmer, like it doesn't really get much warmer than 80 degrees Fahrenheit. It can, get a little warmer than that, but usually it's pretty cool. Now, compared that to the heat domes that we're having right now in the United States, it's really like when you say you can come here to cool off, you're not kidding. You really can. And then once you get up into the Alps, it's very cool.
Of course.
There's still snow up there.
Yes, that's true.
So
the weather, on average, really doesn't get above 70. It's in Celsius. It doesn't get above really 23. There's always some rain. Rain is not a scarcity here.
No.
It's something that happens on a very constant basis.
Now, we're not done with Switzerland yet. We still have a week and a half to spend here, and we're going to be traveling around the country, and then we're going to make another stop in the Jungfrau area, and then we're on to our next destination. But I'm really looking forward to seeing Switzerland during the summer. It's something that I've actually only experienced once, and it was like 1974, so I don't really remember it that well. Our question of the week, again, is what's the most expensive place you've ever visited, and was it worth it? So please don't forget our question of the week. Leave your comments. We will read your comments in our next podcast.
This has been the Zürich Confidential podcast. Thank you so much for listening all the way through. And if you skipped, I'm sorry, but you missed a really good podcast. You should definitely skip back a couple minutes.
Yeah, don't skip the podcast.
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea. Good to see you, everyone, and we will be back with you real soon with another report from Switzerland and our next destination, which we're not telling you what it is yet, but it's a surprise. See you then. Auf Wiedersehen.
Ciao.